When a war begins, you don't get a warning. You get a window, small, chaotic, and brutally short. In those first 72 hours, roads jam, networks collapse, and entire cities turn from functioning societies into unpredictable battlefields. And in that window, the only thing that separates those who move from those who freeze is what they can carry on their back. Every modern crisis, whether it's a war breaking out on your doorstep, a cyber attack that paralyzes infrastructure, an act of sabotage targeting the power grid, or a sudden collapse of civil order, follows the same brutal pattern. The first 72 hours are the most dangerous. It's the moment when information is fragmented, emergency services are overwhelmed, law enforcement is stretched thin, and every wrong decision can cost you everything. In that window, a bug-out bag is not a hobby project or a prepper accessory. It is a tool of mobility and autonomy, your lifeline to get out of a target zone before it becomes a trap, to reach a safe location before roads close, and to stay mentally sharp when panic sets in. In this video, we'll break down how to build that bag the right way, what to include and why it matters, which mistakes to avoid, and how to turn it into a real insurance policy against chaos so that when the unthinkable happens, you're already 3 steps ahead. And if building that kind of mindset matters to you, make sure you're subscribed. This is where preparation stops being theory and becomes strategy. Before we talk about gear, before we list a single item, we need to pause and understand one crucial truth. If you don't know what a bug-out bag is supposed to do, you will almost certainly build it wrong. And getting this part wrong can cost you more than just wasted space. It can cost you time, mobility, and options when you need them most. Too many people jump straight into checklists and product reviews without ever defining the real mission. This isn't about packing for a camping trip or surviving in the wilderness for weeks. It's not about creating a mini version of your home or throwing random tools into a backpack just in case. A real bug-out bag is a strategic instrument. Its only purpose is to give you a 3-day window of freedom to move, to make decisions, to get out of danger and toward safety before the situation closes in around you. It is a bridge, a temporary lifeline that buys you critical time when everything else is collapsing. That means every choice you make should serve that mission. It needs to be light enough to carry quickly through blocked roads or damaged infrastructure, robust enough to function if services are gone, and equipped to handle injuries, dehydration, or exposure without outside help. But its most overlooked job is this. It must preserve your ability to think clearly when everything around you is chaos. Because panic kills faster than hunger, thirst, or cold ever will. Designing a bag with that in mind means asking the right questions before you ever pack a single thing. Where will you likely be when a crisis starts? How far might you need to travel to reach safety? And what obstacles, physical, social, or logistical, stand between you and that destination? Your answers define not only what goes inside, but how the entire system is structured. A bag meant for urban evacuation will look very different from one designed for a rural fallback location. A kit for a family will involve different trade-offs than one for a single person. And a plan that assumes functioning infrastructure will not resemble one built for a total collapse. Once you see it this way, the logic behind every piece of gear becomes obvious. And the very first piece of that logic is the most essential resource of all, because without water you don't have 72 hours. In fact, you might not even have 24. And that's why the first decision that truly shapes the rest of your bug-out bag isn't about tools, weapons, or even food. It's about water. Because without it, all the other preparations become irrelevant. The human body can survive for weeks without solid food, but without water, your physical and mental performance begin to break down in just a matter of hours. Dehydration doesn't just make you thirsty, it clouds judgment, slows reaction time, weakens muscles, and accelerates fatigue. In a high-pressure environment, that chain reaction can turn a manageable situation into a fatal one. This is why, In almost every modern conflict, one of the first targets is water infrastructure. Sabotage, power grid failures, or even cyber attacks can disrupt pumps, treatment plants, and distribution systems long before conventional fighting reaches your area. And when that happens, access to clean water stops being a convenience and becomes a survival line. The rule of thumb is simple. 1 gallon per person per day covers basic drinking and hygiene needs. But here's the reality. Carrying that much water for 72 hours is heavy and impractical. That's why your strategy needs to focus less on transporting water and more on accessing and purifying it as you move. Compact containers and collapsible bladders allow you to carry manageable amounts without adding too much weight, while portable filtration systems like pump filters, gravity bags, or even straw filters let you turn questionable sources into drinkable water on the go. If you're operating in an urban environment, purification tablets and chemical drops are a lightweight backup that can neutralize pathogens when filtration isn't possible. In rural or wilderness conditions, boiling remains one of the most reliable methods, but it requires planning for fuel and time. A smart setup uses layers of redundancy, at least 2 methods of purification and 1 backup container, so a broken filter or contaminated bottle doesn't leave you exposed. And remember, water isn't just for drinking. It's vital for treating wounds, preventing infection, and regulating body temperature, especially under physical stress. Managing it well is about more than survival. It's about keeping your decision-making sharp and your mobility intact. Because once water stops flowing, the clock starts ticking, and everything else in your plan will depend on whether you can keep that one resource under control. And once that foundation is secured, the next challenge is just as fundamental: generating and preserving the energy that keeps your body warm, your gear functional, and your options open when the grid goes dark. Securing water is the foundation, but once that need is under control, the next battle begins, and it's one that defines whether you remain operational or become vulnerable fast. Because in every modern conflict, after water systems fail, power grids and heating infrastructure are almost always the next to go. It's not a coincidence. Disabling electricity is one of the fastest ways to paralyze a population, slow emergency response, and create chaos. When the lights go out and the temperature drops, mobility, communication, and even basic survival tasks become exponentially harder. That's why the ability to generate and conserve energy is not a luxury, it's a strategic necessity. Your bug-out bag should always include at least 2 reliable fire-starting methods, and they need to work under pressure. Waterproof matches, ferro rods, or compact plasma lighters remain dependable even in wet or windy conditions. Fire isn't just about cooking or boiling water, it's a tool for warmth, signaling, and psychological resilience. Light is just as critical. In the absence of power, urban areas become disorienting and dangerous. A compact, high-lumen flashlight with multiple brightness settings is essential, but so is a small headlamp to free up your hands for other tasks. Red light modes, often overlooked, can preserve night vision and reduce visibility to others, a crucial detail if you're trying to stay unnoticed. Power storage and distribution are where many go wrong. A single large power bank is good, but 2 medium-sized ones give you redundancy and flexibility. Consider solar chargers if you expect extended outages, especially in rural areas where mobility matters more. They're slower but provide a steady trickle of energy that keeps devices operational when the grid stays down for days. But the most overlooked piece of this puzzle is heat. Hypothermia can set in quickly when the body loses warmth faster than it can generate it, and without functioning heating systems, that risk skyrockets. Your strategy should combine passive and active methods. Passive means insulating your body and environment. Lightweight emergency blankets, reflective bivy sacks, and layered clothing trap body heat with minimal weight. Active methods include chemical hand warmers, compact stoves, or even improvised heating from boiling water and storing it in insulated containers. Each option buys you time, preserves your strength, and extends your decision-making window. Because when infrastructure collapses, those who stay warm and powered don't just survive, they keep their ability to move, think, and respond. And that's critical, because once you have water and energy, the next challenge is equally unforgiving: how to feed your body and maintain strength when supply chains break down. Once water, energy, and heat are secured, the next layer of survival is building a space where your body can recover, regroup, and plan your next move. Because in any collapse, exposure can kill faster than hunger or dehydration. And when infrastructure fails, the meaning of home changes. It might be a damaged building, the back of a vehicle, or an open patch of ground, but the mission stays the same: create a controlled environment that shields you from cold, moisture, and wind. The good news is that protection doesn't require heavy gear, it requires strategy. Lightweight tarps, emergency bivvies, or compact shelters become far more effective when combined with smart positioning. Choose locations that naturally block the wind, behind a wall, along a slope, or on the sheltered side of a vehicle, because reducing air movement around you preserves heat and slows energy loss. Insulation is the next battle. The ground is a powerful conductor of cold, so never sleep directly on it. A closed cell pad, an inflatable mat, or even a thick layer of leaves or clothing can create the barrier your body needs. If you're indoors, treat the space like a survival capsule. Hang blankets to block drafts, seal off unused areas, and concentrate warmth where you sleep. Moisture is just as dangerous as temperature. Even a small amount of water on your clothing or sleeping gear pulls heat from your body and accelerates hypothermia. Always keep one dry layer sealed in a waterproof bag and change into it before you rest. But shelter is more than a physical shield. It's a psychological anchor. Having a defined, protected space lowers stress, conserves energy, and sharpens your decision-making when everything else is uncertain. And a well-organized base does more than keep you alive. It becomes a small command post, a place to dry equipment, treat injuries, and reorganize supplies before moving again. From here, survival shifts from defense to endurance. And endurance depends on the one resource your body cannot fight without: consistent, high-density nutrition that fuels strength when the systems around you stop. Once you've secured shelter and created a space to recover, the next battle is fuel. Because survival isn't just about staying alive, it's about staying capable. In a real crisis, food isn't about comfort or feeling full. It's about keeping your mind sharp, your body strong, and your endurance high when every movement and every decision has consequences. When calorie intake drops too low, your reaction time slows, focus collapses, and mistakes multiply. And in a volatile environment, one mistake can cost more than any resource you carry. Under normal conditions, the average adult burns around 2,000 to 2,500 calories a day. But under stress, when adrenaline spikes, temperatures drop, and physical demands rise, that number can climb much higher. Your objective is not to replicate a balanced diet, but to deliver maximum energy in the smallest possible package. That's why every bug-out bag should include compact, calorie-dense foods with long shelf lives. Energy bars, dehydrated meals, nuts, jerky, and vacuum-sealed rations all pack high fuel into minimal space and weight. A mix of fast-burning carbohydrates for immediate power and slow-burning fats for sustained energy keeps you functional, while moderate protein intake helps preserve muscle over time. Storage matters as much as selection. Heat, moisture, and time degrade shelf life, so vacuum sealing, Mylar bags, and airtight containers can dramatically extend reliability. Label everything and rotate supplies regularly because outdated food is dead weight when you need it most. Your water plan must also work in sync with your food plan. Many dehydrated meals require rehydration, and if you haven't accounted for that, you may be carrying calories you can't actually use. And beyond physiology, food plays a psychological role. In long emergencies, the structure of regular meals anchors your mind, reduces panic, and stabilizes morale, especially if you're not alone. That stability is a form of security in itself, because once your strength is sustained and your energy reserves secured, the next phase of survival begins, protecting yourself and those you care about in a world where law and order may no longer exist. With energy sustained and your body fueled, the final layer of a true 72-hour survival system is the one most people underestimate: medical capability. Because when hospitals are overwhelmed, emergency services are offline, or roads are blocked, even a small injury can spiral into a life-threatening emergency. A deep cut, an untreated infection, or a few hours of uncontrolled bleeding can turn a survivable situation into a fatal one. And in a real-world collapse, this happens far more often than most people realize. That's why your bug-out bag must always include a compact but comprehensive first aid kit. Not a convenience item, but a critical life support system. At the core are trauma supplies designed to stop severe bleeding fast. Pressure bandages, sterile gauze, and a quality tourniquet are non-negotiable. These are the tools that buy you time when emergency services aren't coming. For smaller injuries, cuts, burns, or blisters, adhesive bandages, antiseptic wipes, and antibiotic ointments prevent infection from taking hold. Infection control is one of the most overlooked aspects of survival, but it's also one of the most deadly. Without antibiotics or professional care, something as minor as a scrape can escalate rapidly, so cleanliness and prevention become tactical priorities. Thermal injuries and hypothermia require a different approach. Space blankets, chemical heat packs, and insulated wraps can stabilize body temperature while you treat underlying issues. Personal medications are just as critical. If you or anyone in your group relies on prescriptions for chronic conditions, from insulin to blood pressure medication, include at least several days' supply sealed in waterproof containers. It's also wise to pack pain relievers, antihistamines, and antidiarrheal tablets, as gastrointestinal issues are common in emergencies due to contaminated food or water. Training matters as much as gear. Even the best medical kit is useless if you don't know how to use it, so basic first aid knowledge, how to stop bleeding, clean wounds, splint fractures, and recognize signs of shock is a force multiplier. Because in a true disaster, you might not just be treating yourself, you could be the only line of care for someone else. And once that final piece is in place, your bag stops being just a collection of tools, it becomes a self-contained survival system. But there's still one last factor that ties all of this together, and it doesn't weigh anything: the ability to defend that system when the rule of law no longer exists. A well-stocked medical kit can keep you alive, but survival is about more than treating what's already happened. It's about anticipating what comes next. And in a collapsing system, information becomes as critical as water or shelter. Without it, you're blind. You don't know where danger is forming, which roads are blocked, whether evacuation orders have been issued, or if a threat is moving closer. That's why communication isn't an accessory in your bug-out plan, it's a survival multiplier. When traditional networks go down, cell towers fail, and the internet goes dark, the simplest tools often become the most reliable. A hand crank or battery-powered emergency radio can provide critical updates from government agencies, local authorities, or even foreign broadcasters when other sources go silent. Shortwave radios extend that reach even further, allowing you to monitor signals from beyond the immediate crisis zone. Information that could shape whether you stay put, move, or change direction. Satellite messengers and compact communication beacons are another level of preparedness. They allow you to send brief status updates, or SOS signals, even when terrestrial networks are offline. In a worst-case scenario, that single message could mean the difference between isolation and rescue. But staying informed is only half the battle. Staying unnoticed is just as important. Signaling to allies without drawing attention to threats is a delicate balance. Small, prearranged light codes, reflective markers, or simple analog signs can communicate essential information quietly and securely. And when it comes to personal safety, self-defense tools should follow the same principle: functional, discreet, and legal. A small pepper spray, a compact flashlight with a striking bezel, or a sturdy folding knife can offer a critical layer of protection without adding unnecessary weight or legal risk. Firearms, where permitted, require careful consideration. Training, secure transport, and a clear understanding of local laws are essential before including them in any kit. Above all, remember that visibility is a double-edged sword. Broadcasting your presence or capabilities can attract the very threats you're trying to avoid. The goal is to collect intelligence without revealing your position, to communicate without being traced, and to defend yourself without escalating the situation. Because when chaos unfolds, the ability to stay connected and stay unseen often determines who stays ahead of it and who gets caught in its path. And once those final layers are in place, there's one last piece to address: a mindset that turns a bag of gear into a real survival system. All the gear in the world, water filters, radios, first aid, weapons, is only as effective as the mind that uses it. And this is where most people fail. They build a bug-out bag as if it's a magic talisman, something that will automatically keep them alive when things go wrong. But in reality, the bag is not the plan, you are. Its contents only become powerful when they're part of a clear strategy, rehearsed and ready to execute under pressure. The first step is organization. Every item in your bag should have a purpose and a place, and that place should be intuitive. Critical gear, medical supplies, water filtration, fire-starting tools must be accessible in seconds, not buried under layers of less urgent items. Practice retrieving them in low light or with gloves on, because in a real emergency, conditions are rarely ideal. Equally important is familiarity. Owning a tool is not the same as knowing how to use it. A water filter that you've never tested, a stove you've never lit, or a tourniquet you've never applied are just dead weight when seconds matter. Regular drills, from setting up shelter in the dark to boiling water under stress, turn unfamiliar tasks into muscle memory. Adaptability is another cornerstone of this mindset. Your kit should evolve with the environment and the threat. The gear you pack for an urban evacuation during civil unrest might differ from what you'd need for a rural escape during a power grid failure. Seasonal changes, regional threats, and even personal circumstances like children or medical needs should all influence how you build and adjust your loadout. But perhaps the most difficult skill of all is decision-making. One of the hardest choices in any crisis is whether to stay put or move. Mobility buys you distance from danger, but it also introduces risk. Staying in place offers familiarity and resources, but it can turn deadly if the situation deteriorates. The best operators decide based on conditions, not emotion. They monitor information, assess threats, and act early, because hesitation kills options. Ultimately, a bug-out bag is more than a collection of survival gear. It's a force multiplier for a prepared mind. And if everything you've seen so far is the hardware of survival, this mindset is the software, the invisible system that makes everything work together when the stakes are highest. And once you understand that, one final truth becomes clear. The goal of all this preparation isn't just to survive the first 72 hours. It's to make sure you're still standing on hour 73, ready for whatever comes next. History shows us a pattern that never truly changes. Before every major conflict, before every societal rupture, there is a period that feels stable, predictable, almost safe. And it's precisely in that moment when shelves are full, power grids hum, and cities go about their business, that the next crisis is already taking shape beneath the surface. Cyber attacks probing critical systems, supply chains stretched thin, geopolitical rivalries hardening into confrontation. These are not distant possibilities. They are the early tremors of what often comes next. And when that moment arrives, the first 72 hours decide everything. They determine who has the mobility to escape a target zone, who has the clarity to make the right decisions, who keeps their family fed, warm, and informed, and who becomes another casualty of unpreparedness. A bug-out bag is not about fear, it's about agency. It's about refusing to let chance dictate the outcome when order breaks down. And while most people wait for the headlines before they act, Those who prepare quietly, deliberately, and early are the ones who shape their own fate. Because in the end, it's rarely the strongest who endure, but those who saw the storm coming before the first raindrop fell. So build the bag, test it, refine it, and keep it ready. Not because panic is justified, but because resilience is. What's the one item you would never leave out of your bug-out bag? Share it in the comments. Your idea might be the one that helps someone else get through their first 72 hours.